many heads screaming out, stop snitching? What if Adam and Eve ain't eat the fruit? You think we'd be able to see the truth? Or what if Albert Einstein ain't think of the nuke? Or Smith & Wesson ain't teach us to shoot? You think there'd be as many plays out there if there was no boost? Matter of fact, what if white man hung off a noose? Would it still be cool to say nigga? Or maybe we would make six figures? Or would we wanna be crackers? And all the whites would be rappers? What if Martin Luther King survived? You think the New Orleans flood would've caused him to drop and die? I wonder what if and see what is. Stand back from the picture and ask yourself why. What if life wasn't all you thought? What if everything you knew was gone? What if we switched to rights and wrongs? You think you'd change your route to the road we on? What if life wasn't all you thought? What if everything you knew was gone? What if we switched to rights and wrongs? You think you'd change your route to the road we on? If Christopher Wallace never got murked, how much money would Sean Carter be worth? What if Tupac never got hit with the flame? Would the game still have change filled with these lames? What if Jabari wasn't speeding down the street? What if the bullet Malcolm sent never hit Zeke? A black guy dropped off at the house instead of a stop? Or Ali never got bopped by the cops? What if the little homie EZ didn't die? Stand back from the picture and ask yourself why. What if life wasn't all you thought? What if everything you knew was gone? What if we switched to rights and wrongs? You think you'd change your route to the road we on? What if life wasn't all you thought? What if everything you knew was gone? What if we switched to rights and wrongs? You think you'd change your route to the road we on? I don't know. What if? What if?
to the 4th branch program. Glad you can make it. I am MD. This program is dedicated exclusively for those with common sense, a spirit of patriotism, and a determination for a more perfect union. Stay tuned as we begin the discussion of a very important, interesting, and enlightening topic. Hope to hear from you soon. Happy listening.
It is a foolish and even dangerous endeavor trying to educate fools. The risk of not trying is much greater, however, not only for this generation, but for many future generations. Hello everyone, I am MD and this is the 4th branch program. I mentioned here in this program many times before that America is in crisis. It has been for many decades now, but the past 2 years we have seen an acceleration in the erosion of our democracy and the decline of what we were once the values we've held deeply. It is not the fault of just one individual. It is not a scenario which started with the presidency of Donald Trump. However, with the complicity of the Republican legislators who are more concerned about their political career over the loyalty to the nation, and organizations such as Fox, which are more interested in filling their coffers, even to the detriment of the country, future generations may not have much of a country to be proud of. Today, we debate a number of issues which have contributed to the erosion of our democracy. We will talk about race relations, of course, an issue we have been talking about for the past couple of months. We will also introduce the Green New Deal, which I'm sure you must have heard of at this point, but we'll debate it from a different angle, of course. We will also debate a very important, sensitive, but necessary topic: why we as a nation must demand the impeachment of the 45th President of the United States, Donald Trump. And in relation to that, we will also talk about why you should fire your Republican representative if you wish to preserve the integrity of our nation. We will come back to discuss how costly it is to be ignorant in the era of Donald Trump.
Hi, I am MD, host of the 4th branch program. War on Blacks is a topic added to the 4th branch programming in order to discuss the intricacies, the complexities of race relation in America. The goal is threefold. 1. To bring attention to the various forms of prejudice, discrimination, and racism in the country.
2. To expose the undeniable presence of such in every aspect of life and every corner of our society. 3. To extricate us all from the ignorance, the indifference, or the complicity. The ultimate objective is to make the discussions of those issues, racism, prejudice, discrimination, a normal part of our lives. Then, and only then, will we as a society be able to eradicate the problem. Martin Luther King Jr. said, "Nothing in all the world is more dangerous than sincere ignorance and conscientious stupidity." Abraham Joshua Heschel exclaimed, "Racism is man's gravest threat to man, the maximum of hatred for the minimum of reason." Join me in the journey to restore equality. Or would you please get out of the way? Thank you. We begin today by inviting you first to visit the People Branch YouTube channel. That is the People Branch YouTube channel, which is where we have the archive, all the archive of all the previous episodes that we've already discussed, debated, and also that relate to this topic at hand, war on blacks. If you join us for the first time, welcome. And of course, we ought to set the stage for you so you understand why we call this topic, which is the discussion on race relation in America, war on blacks, and 2, as to what we ought or we want to achieve with this particular discussion. War on blacks is a topic or a label, a banner that we use not for sensationalism, but rather to point to the fact that there are casualties. As you know, in any war, there are always casualties. But for blacks, it has become a permanent affair that here in America, the war on blacks come in very different ways. Now we talked about a lot in the past about the period of slavery. We went to that period in our history in order to understand the dynamic, the interaction between blacks and whites. And in the process, we discuss a number of scenarios, a number of different scenarios which help to understand how the dynamic, the interaction between blacks and white evolved during the slavery time, which at some point triggered the Civil War, and what happened beyond the Civil War. In fact, that's exactly where we at this point. We are talking about what exactly happened beyond the Civil War. Now, the Civil War, if you remember, took place because there were two groups, two very major groups, which pretty much divided the country. One group which wanted to keep slavery around, and the other group which wanted to end slavery. It is obvious that the group which wanted to end slavery succeeded. They won. However, blacks seems to be not any better, relatively speaking, as far as the end of slavery. So we're here today to talk about two factors which continue to contribute to the predicament blacks live in today. Harry Belafonte said that when a black voice is raised in protest to oppression, those who are comfortable with our oppression are the first to criticize us for daring to speak out against it, against the oppression, that is. When a black voice is raised in protest to oppression, those who are comfortable with our oppression are the first to criticize us for daring to speak out against oppression. Now, this statement, this by Harry Belafonte, we can go as far back as slavery and see the same behavior by very specific group of whites, those who were slave owners, those who were racist, and those who wish to keep things the way they were. And that was their very sentiment, their very reaction. Why should black be free? That's the reason you may remember that every time a black or a group of blacks fled, they were hunted, captured, and punished, sometimes executed, hung publicly. That's the sentiment of those who are racist, who want to keep things exactly the way they want to keep things, no matter how inhuman, no matter how outrageous it is, but that's what they want. And today, there is also the other side of the coin. Now, we can easily identify those who are so eager to criticize us when we raise our voice against oppression. You tune into Fox and you'll find there is no lack of such. Whenever a black individual falls victim of police brutality, and of course most blacks would protest, go and protest, and that's their right. We are in a democratic system, we live in a free country, and it is the right of every group in the country when they feel that they're not being, when the group feels that, or when the members of the group feel that they are not being treated properly, fairly, it is within the right to protest. And you can easily identify those racists who automatically get on the bullhorn and criticize blacks protesting police brutality. Now, in a civilized society, you would think that when something like that happens, that means police brutality, or whether physical brutality or murder of a black individual, you would think that it doesn't take a genius to say that it is not right. It doesn't matter the circumstances. A police officer who killed an unarmed individual. Now, I focus on blacks in particular because they are they suffer the brunt of that particular issue in our country. But in general, it really doesn't matter what the circumstances are. Whenever you hear that a police officer executing, and I use the word not to dramatize it because that's exactly what it is. When you have someone with a firearm and the other individual is not armed, and that individual with the firearm empty his weapon on that unarmed individual, that's not a defense. That's an execution. You can spin it 1,000 ways. It is an execution. That's what execution is. The other side doesn't have any way of countering because the other side doesn't have a weapon. And more often than not, if you've been following how much that blacks have been fallen victim of law enforcement, if you've been following that, you would notice that most of the time, the individual, the black individual, who was executed by the law enforcement, usually heading the opposite way to the law enforcement. In other words, the person is fleeing the scene, not heading toward or trying to confront. In other words, we're talking about the law enforcement officer whose primary job is to protect, but instead of doing that, use the weapon and execute the individual. And we, as a society, we condone it, we make excuses for it, we justify it, and guess what happened? 100 years later, beyond slavery, whites continue to execute blacks without any sign of slowing down. And the reason for that is because there is no punishment coming. Because 95% of the time, this is the state of affairs for blacks. That's why white police officers continue to execute blacks on the street. It's because when they do, there is no punishment for them. 95% of the time, they just walk. Most of the time, they get to keep their job after ending a human life. Oh yes, this is unfortunately the state of affairs here in the United States of America. Last time I mentioned to you that in 2017 in London, there was only one casualty, a police officer who killed an unarmed civilian. 2017, for the whole 2017, year of 2017. Here in America, we had 942 men gunned down by police officer, 53 women gunned down by police officer in that same year. The reason I pick London is because the composition, the demographics is pretty similar to most major cities in America. And that's the reason I chose that, to show you the comparison between a country that values lives, that try to spare lives, and another country that simply takes it away. And the reason blacks suffer the most is because most of the time, two things happen. The police officer is guaranteed or knows that he's not going to lose his job. And even if he does lose his job, he's not going to go to jail. And that's exactly the same predicament black slaves were in under slavery. Because the white slave owners would kill a black and there is no penalty, no punishment. Now blacks, every conversation I have with blacks when it comes to progress in the country, we always have an argument. We never could agree on that aspect. Because what they call progress, I don't. Because I simply see a transposition of victimizer and victim. It used to be the white slave owners. Today it's the cops. That's the only difference. Because the white slave owners would kill the slave and there is no punishment. Today, the cops would kill the blacks on the street for no reason, usually unarmed black men heading the opposite way, and they would concoct a story. If you watch, take any example that you want, send it to me and I'll prove to you that most of the time, I would say 99% of the time, that the black individual who is gunned down by the cop, unarmed and running away from the cop. Usually that's the case. But in the report, they usually show some kind of confrontation with the black. There is always a confrontation on the report. Now, if there is no video that comes back to show that the cop lied, then everybody took the cop word at face value. But we already know that's what they do. They kill blacks and they lie about it, they cover it up. We remember Laquan in Chicago. We remember the gentleman in South Carolina. They even have their partners trying to plant a weapon with the victim so that they can say it was self-defense. We already know here in America, the reason that blacks fall victims is because there is no punishment for the perpetrators of the crime. We call law enforcement people who are to serve and protect. For blacks, this is a very different scenario because a black individual hates the presence of cops because they're more in danger with cops around than not. That's the state of affairs. War on blacks is not for sensation, is not to sensationalize the discussion. It is the state of affairs for blacks in the United States of America. Now, there is this second aspect that we have found that's also a major problem. It's the silence of whites who may not necessarily be racist, because as we mentioned before, we've acknowledged that there are two groups of whites in the nation. Those who are racist and who discriminate, and those who are not and who do not discriminate. And the silence also is a form of discrimination. And the reason I say that is because if you see wrongdoing and you do nothing, you're as much an accomplice to the problem as the individual who create the problem, as the individual perpetrating the crime or doing the wrong, perpetrating or performing the wrongdoing. Because if, just as you see, when a cop with a partner, if the cop knew, well, maybe the racist one, if maybe that's a way to try to differentiate between the two. The racist one would do something that's racist, but the other individual, the other with the racist, may not necessarily agree with what the racist did. Being silent, whether the partner stays silent or corroborate the story of the racist or helps the racist. Now, you cannot justify that it wasn't you. And that's the reason we suggest in predicament where a cop gets involved in wrongdoing such as killing an unarmed individual, the partner to become responsible for that problem too. And the reason is because when you say nothing, you pretty much support the wrongdoing. Turning a blind eye is not a defense. And we see that happen at the workplace. Someone sees discrimination, heard about discrimination, because it doesn't impact him or her, simply stays silent, says nothing. Which means you also contribute to perpetuate the state of racism and discrimination in the country. Yes, you can say, I do not discriminate. I don't have any problem with blacks. When you see wrongdoing and you do nothing, you're as much an accomplice to the problem as those who do it. You cannot wash your hands as if, hey, I didn't do it. Because what contributes to the lingering of this problem in the country, you have in one hand those who are racist, those who are actively, aggressively practicing, implementing racism, and on the other hand, you have those who may not necessarily, there are some neutral individual in the process, in between. They may not be racist, they simply don't want to get involved because, hey, I'm not racist, but that's not my problem. I'm not going to get involved. When you see wrongdoing, you have to attend somehow, whether you tell an individual who is in a position to do something about it, but you cannot just stay silent, go home, and then think, hey, everything is okay, because it's just somebody else that has that problem. There is indeed a war on blacks in America, and it has caused many, many casualties. Blacks have been suffering of those many casualties: physical, emotional, psychological, and financial casualties. Now, the scenarios that I just discussed, we didn't wake up one day and find that we are in this predicament. It didn't just happen overnight. If you go in front of a judge as a black individual, you get punished more harshly than the white individual. It's not because the judge wake up one day and decide to be that way. When you have people like Mitch McConnell placing on the federal bench racist judges, those are not things that just happen overnight. Those type of system were put in place before our parents even conceived us, centuries prior. But why? And that's what we're trying to find out. Why are we suffering today as blacks in America?
Hi, I am MD, host of the Fourth Branch program. War on Blacks is a topic added to the Fourth Branch programming in order to discuss the intricacies, the complexities of race relation in America. The goal is threefold. 1. To bring attention to the various forms of prejudice, discrimination, and racism in the country. 2. To expose the undeniable presence of such in every aspect of life and every corner of our society. 3. To extricate us all
from the ignorance, the indifference, or the complicity. The ultimate objective is to make the discussions of those issues, racism, prejudice, discrimination, a normal part of our lives. Then, and only then, will we as a society be able to eradicate the problem. Martin Luther King Jr. said, "Nothing in all the world is more dangerous than sincere ignorance and conscientious stupidity." Abraham Joshua Heschel exclaimed, "Racism is man's gravest threat to man, the maximum of hatred for the minimum of reason." Join me in the journey to restore equality. Or would you please get out of the way? Thank you. The United States is a republic which form of government is considered a democratic system. The framers of the Constitution was careful enough to structure our government in such a way to prevent what they endured in England from happening in this new found land. You may recall that our forefathers came from England, they fled England, and they came here. Now at that time, England was ruled by king and queens. And under that form of government, if you wish to call it that, people do not have any say over anything. The king or the queen may decide to take your life, may decide to throw you in jail, maybe because he or she woke up on the wrong side of the bed. And because of that, that form of government is not attractive. So the framers of the Constitution decided that here in this Newfoundland, this new country of theirs, they're gonna do everything humanly possible to prevent this form of government from creeping up in their lives. So we have a government which three branches: the legislative branch, the executive branch, and the judicial branch. We will come back to discuss why we mentioned earlier there are two major aspects of our conversation that we wish to address. One, that it has become imperative for us as a nation to demand the impeachment of Donald Trump, and two, for the Republican constituent to fire, get rid of the Republican representative. And I say that not because I just want to say something, but because it is becoming obvious to anyone, American patriot, that we currently have a political party which doesn't give a damn about the country. And as patriots, we cannot just sit with our hands crossed and do nothing. So we wish to remedy the situation, because failure to do so will leave a country that future generation may not be proud of. We'll be right back.
I am MD, host of the Fourth Branch program, inviting you to join me every Saturday at 10:30 a.m. and every weekday at 2 p.m. for discussions of social political issues and to dissect the meaning and the importance of current events, as well as to understand topics of legislations. The Fourth Branch Project is not associated with any political party, and we at the Fourth Branch do not have any political agenda or aspiration. Our ultimate objective is to work towards achieving a more perfect union by removing ignorance, the biggest obstacle to our democracy. Stay with us. We will be right back. As I mentioned earlier, we have three branches of government. The executive branch is obviously, well, where the president is. This is the branch of government. That's the president is the leader. The legislative branch is the Congress and the Senate. And the judicial branch is the Supreme Court. Now, I mentioned earlier that we as a nation must demand the impeachment of Donald Trump. Is why. You see, the impeachment and ultimately removal from office of Donald Trump is the only possible way today to reaffirm the importance of our Constitution and reestablish trust in our democratic system. Let's talk about that a little bit. You see, impeachment is a process. Is a process by which a legislative body, we're talking about Congress, the Senate, a legislative body, the Congress, would level charges against a government official. Now, that's Congress' job. You're looking at 435 members of Congress, 100 members of the Senate. This is what the legislative branch comprises of. Now, Congress is responsible to bring the charges forth. And once that's done, now it becomes the responsibility of the Senate to try the president
against the charges that were brought forth by Congress. So in other words, despite what it sounds like, impeachment is just that, a process to say that the president did X, Y, Z, which is beneath the office of the presidency, which is not acceptable, which could be considered even a crime, and we, American people, cannot just sit idle and just watch that happen. We seen, or we've heard many times the conversation that or many in the legislative branch, both the Democrats and the Republican side, saying that no one is above the law. Now, that's just a statement. If you cannot act on that, then it's saying that there are people above the law. Because you cannot say no one is above the law when everything that you see under your eyes clearly say that there is something wrong, unacceptable, and you do nothing, and that says what? Now, there are two reasons that whether you're a Democrat or Republican, that should be of concern to you, that the 45th President of the United States is acting against the interests of the country. Now, for those that I have had conversation with or have argued to the contrary, I usually like to ask the question, the simple question: does any individual who support Donald Trump believe Donald Trump is innocent of the charges? That's the question. We don't have to go into detail as to what those are, and that's the way our justice system works. If someone is accused of a crime, that doesn't mean the person committed the crime. That doesn't mean the person is going to be charged, is going to be found guilty of the crime. But according the way that our justice system works, is you bring those charges up, and a judge, sometimes jury, get involved and hear your case, because you have to make a case against those charges, and at some point you will be either vindicated or you will be charged. And that's what an impeachment is. It's just a different word that we use, because for government official, that's the word that's used. So the President of the United States is a government official. So we don't talk about bringing a different, we call it impeachment. That's what the Constitution tells us to call it. It's called impeachment. So that's a process that each and every one of us, if any of the thing that Donald Trump has done, any of us were to have done even 1/5 of that, today we would have been in court arguing our case. Now, there is another reason why we cannot just give a pass to Donald Trump. You see, the office of the presidency before Donald Trump used to be a very important office, a very important job, an office that most people before Donald Trump had respect for. They considered that office as an office to hold to the highest standard, meaning that the President of the United States has to be an individual of very high standard, very high integrity. I would like to find any individual who currently support Donald Trump to tell me what kind of integrity they think Donald Trump has. What kind of high standard that they believe Donald Trump has. And the most important question, which I asked earlier, does anyone of Donald Trump supporter believe he is innocent? That's the big question. Would you bet that Donald Trump is innocent? Would you swear on your kids' heads that Donald Trump is innocent? Of course not, because you know he's not. And that's the dilemma we have. The President of the United States is a very shady individual. Everything that he's doing clearly proves beyond any doubt that he is not doing those things for the country. He doesn't have the interest of the country at heart. You may remember on January 20th, 2017, Donald Trump took an oath to uphold the Constitution of the United States. You may see those type of inauguration ceremony as just, well, this is just part of passing the baton from one president to the next. Maybe you do. Maybe that's the problem. But this particular ceremony, where you have the Supreme Court Justice administer the oath of office to the President of the United States, it is a sacred task that says, from now on, we the country confer to you, the President of the United States, the power to protect and to uphold the Constitution of the country. Can anyone, Democrat or Republican, supporter or not, confirm that Donald Trump has protected the Constitution of the United States? The answer is absolutely not. You already know that answer. In the past, when someone who occupies such a high office done anything that they feel is not appropriate, wrong, they would do everything humanly possible to prevent this piece of information from coming out, because it demeans the office of the presidency. As you see Donald Trump, on the other hand, publicly, he trashes the Oval Office. He trampled the rule of law. He has no regard whatsoever for our Constitution. But if that is not enough, he had an army of individuals doing exactly the same thing as well. And as it stands today, there is an investigation that clearly points to Donald Trump as a possible traitor, someone who occupies the highest office, the highest post in our nation, may have collaborated with our fiercest enemy. I don't care whether you support Donald Trump or not. If you were to be a patriot, it would be your duty to demand an impeachment against the 45th President of the United States. Because this is not a politics matter. This is a matter of our Constitution. This is a matter of the integrity of our democracy. And it is necessary that we as a nation recognize that Donald Trump is not worth the sacrifice of our nation. In 1996, a small network by the name of Fox News was launched with just 17 million viewers. Today, with over 100 million people watching regularly, Fox has become the greatest threat to our democracy, constantly bombarding the airwaves with false information, distortion of facts, and outright lies presented to its audience as news. Fox has created an army of blissful ignorance. According to a survey, 82% of Fox viewers are ignorant of facts and the truth. To keep millions of people in ignorance not only prevents democracy from flourishing, but it also clears the path to authoritarianism, to dictatorship. Martin Luther King Jr. said, "Nothing in all the world is more dangerous than sincere ignorance and conscientious stupidity." Let me finish by saying that democracy cannot survive in an environment where truth and facts do not matter. At Fox, truth and facts do not matter. Indeed, democracy in America is in jeopardy. It is a crisis the country can no longer ignore. You may recall earlier I mentioned that we will be talking about the Green New Deal. What is this about? Now there is one name you should be familiar with at this point. It's Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Now, since she won the New York Congress over a veteran, she has been making news. And we're not here to talk about her, but rather an interesting and important issue that she brought forth and she would like for the nation to consider. The Green New Deal is nothing other than, simplifying for you, that a number of proposed legislation that would address the issue of climate change. Now, Ms. Cortez has taken upon herself to push this legislation. Now, according to her own words, she didn't bring that forth to pass the legislation immediately, but rather to begin a discussion about the legislation. Fair enough. But before she even had a chance to finish talking about the Green New Deal, there were countless voices of Republicans, legislators, congressmen, senators, Joseph Fox, Rush Limbaugh, and Coulter. You have the whole Republican machine jumping up and down against Miss Cortez for proposing that legislation. Now, you may remember that the issue of climate change, Republicans have always made make a lot of noise about climate change because, well, they do not believe in climate change. They don't think there is such a thing as climate change. In fact, just a few days ago, when it was extremely cold, Donald Trump sent a tweet mocking the idea of global warming. Now, I'm not here to discuss the legislation, but to make a very important point. Unfortunately, we seem to have a small issue with a screen that we would like to give you a better understanding as to why, when we see or we hear someone bringing forth an issue, a legislation for Republican constituents not to blindly follow their legislators. And here's the reason. We've already established that Republican legislators, they do not operate on behalf of their constituent. And this is not just an empty word, an empty expression. We've seen it time and time and time again. Now, I'm not going to go too far in the past. I'm going to start with 2017, during the Trump administration, just to give you a sense of what we're talking about. And keep in mind, I said Republican legislators, your Republican legislator, your Republican representative do not care about your issue. They do not care about the nation. They simply care about keeping their job. It doesn't matter the damage they do to the nation. It doesn't matter the damage they do to the constituent. In fact, they don't care that the constituent stay dumb, ignorant about a topic. In fact, they love the idea. And here's why. I'm going to give you two examples. First, remember during the Obama administration, Republicans tried 62 times to repeal Obamacare. Remember that? Was it because they were doing it for you? Was it because they were doing it for the country? Well, by now you should know the answer is no. They never cared about the country. They never cared about the constituent. There were 14 states in the United States whose constituent resident could not get coverage for pre-existing condition. The reason is because those constituents live in a state, live in states governed by Republican governors. Those Republican governors prevented Healthcare Act, aka Obamacare, from ever becoming an alternative, an opportunity for the resident in the state. Were they doing that for the resident, on behalf of the resident? The answer is no. They were doing that because that was their way to protect the insurance company. See, they simply do not care. In those states, those states governed by Republican governor, there were plenty of people with pre-existing condition. But your governors simply prevented you from having that opportunity. They lied about the Healthcare Act. They say it was a death panel. We all know that was a lie. And they did the lie for one reason and one reason alone: to scare you away from supporting a legislation which would have benefited you. They told you it was going to cost jobs. They know that wasn't true. We're not talking about people who say something and who were mistaken, because there is a big difference between you say something and you were mistaken. Now that's understandable. You were still wrong, but you were mistaken. But your Republican elected official, your Republican legislators, they weren't mistaken. They said those things because that was their way of preventing you from supporting a legislation which would have benefited you. Now tell me, is it someone that working for your well-being? You can look at it any way you want. Someone who does something like that to you, that person, you cannot possibly want that person to represent you or to continue to represent you. They told you it was going to be a death panel. It was going to cost jobs. It was going to be bad for the country. Now, fast forward to 2017, 2018. You remember during the 2018 midterm how those same individuals, those same one who voted 62 times to repeal Obamacare, how they came to you and say, if you elect me back in office, I'll make sure you're protected against pre-existing condition. Wait a minute. Didn't they try to repeal Obamacare? As you can see, your Republican representative, they do not care about your well-being. They do not care about the country. The reason they did that is because they were protecting the insurance companies, which pour a lot of money into their campaign re-election, and as such, you, the Republican constituent, do not matter. They don't care that you die or your loved one die of pre-existing condition. The hell with you. They get money from the insurance company to get re-elected. This is not a politics thing, because it's one thing that someone plays politics. And last time I gave you example of politics, and I'll give it to you again so that you can see the difference between someone who is playing politics and someone who is playing with your life, with your well-being. For instance, I'm giving you one example from Democrat and one example from Republican. For example, when Mitch McConnell played his hand and prevented Obama from placing on the Supreme Court a judge, he was playing politics. Now, it's dirty, it's unfair, it's unacceptable, but it was politics. So he played the Democrats. He said Obama was on his last year in office. We should not let Obama put someone in on the Supreme Court. We'll let the next president do that. Now, the argument, you can argue about the argument. I'm not here to debate that. I'm here to show to you what politics is. Now, on the Democrat side, you may recall what Nancy Pelosi did to Donald Trump during the shutdown. She said to Donald Trump, well, you cannot really give the State of the Union because, you know, we have a shutdown. We won't have enough manpower to give you protection. That's politics. Yes, you may not like it, you may not agree with it, you may hate it, but that's what people in politics do. They outwit the other side. That's politics. But what your Republican representative did to you in regards to Obamacare was not politics, because they lied to you about it. They tell you it was going to be a death panel. They know it was not true. They lied to you. They tell you it was going to cost jobs. They knew it wasn't true. They lied to you. That's not politics. Those are individuals who could not care less about your well-being. So they lied to you, and guess what? They found out that every time that they lie to you, you buy the lie. So they continue to do it. Now, in 2017, they did something even worse. They proposed a $1.5 trillion tax cut. You may not recall, I do, because that's what I do. I follow them, I write about them, and try to understand why Republican elected officials, why do they lie to their constituent? Now, you may remember Paul Ryan, Mitch McConnell, and a bunch of other Republicans were out there drumming the beat that it's a tax cut for the people. I'm sure you remember that. It's $1.5 trillion. 1.3 trillion out of that go to wealthy corporation and large corporation and wealthy individual. 87% of the money went to large corporation and wealthy individual. Now, we the people, the small part of the pie, we only get 0.2, which is $200 billion, that to be divided among everybody. Now, I heard some Republican, oh, well, I'm glad I can get $40, $60 extra on my paycheck. Of course, the Republican, your Republican representative expected you to be satisfied with that. Now, imagine someone borrowed $100,000 from the bank and turn around and give you $2,000. $100,000, turn around and give you $2,000. Now you can say, well, it was $2,000 I didn't have, and that's what really most Republican constituents, that's what they were chanting about, that, well, at least we get something. But unfortunately, you didn't get anything, because the $2,000 that were given to you is not a gift. You have to pay that back, plus the other $98,000 that were given to somebody else. Yes, you heard correctly. That's the way they structure their legislation. So Republicans lied to you about the whole thing. And it's not that they didn't know, because they were the one, without any Democrats involved, they were the one who structured that legislation. So they lied to you by telling you that you're going to get a huge tax cut. So they borrow $100,000, they divided among us $2,000, but we responsible for the whole $100,000. So that's what Republican constituents are chanting about. Oh, I'm glad I get $40, $60. Yes, Republican legislators, they rely on your ignorance to do those kind of things, because they know you couldn't possibly understand that. And guess where the bulk of the money went? To large corporations. Why, you ask? Because they expect during their campaign they get some money from the corporation. Now, I say all that for one reason, not because I wanted to talk about all that, is because I wanted to talk about the Green New Deal. It is about climate change. Now, you know how many times your Republican representative, people on the radio, on TV, how much that they have been talking against the idea of legislation for climate change. Now, let me ask you the question, a very simple question. Who do you go to know what the weather is going to be like? Do you go to Fox? Do you go to Rush Limbaugh? Do you go to Ann Coulter? Do they know? Can they know? Of course not. They have to go to the meteorologists to provide them with that information. When there is an earthquake, who is knowledgeable enough to tell you about it? Is it Rush, Ann Coulter, Laura Ingraham? They have to rely on the expert, the scientists. When there is going to be a hurricane, why do you think they would have more knowledge than those who study this very topic? Why would you give more credence to someone who has no knowledge about anything, let alone something as complex as the weather? But hold that thought for a moment. Why would you want to find out what would happen to you if those fools that you've been listening to are wrong? Why would you want to find that out? If you tune into your favorite station, radio or television, whatever that is, and the weather, the weather center put announcement out there and say there is going to be an earthquake in your area, and it's going to be a huge earthquake, and they predict, or they anticipate rather, that it's going to be miles wide, and it may cause as much as maybe, let's just pick a number, more than 1 million people will be impacted. Let's assume that's the case. Would you listen to those fools at Fox or Rush or Ann or Ingram or Sean Hannity who would come and tell you, no, that's not going to happen? Would you? And then stick around to find out that you actually would or could lose your life because you listen to some fools who have no idea what he's talking about? Why would you? When you're sick, don't you go to a doctor? And why do you go there? It's because you trust that the doctor has the knowledge to cure you, to find out what's wrong with you. Would you go to Sean Hannity to tell you? Say you feel a pain in your stomach, and Sean Hannity tell you, oh, it's just a gas, you don't have to go to the doctor. Would you listen to him? Yes, those people are fools. They make money based on your ignorance. They rely on your ignorance. They rely on the fact that the more ignorant you stay, the better it is for them, because they can continue to be wealthier and wealthier as long as you stay ignorant. Because the more ignorant you stay, the longer you listen to them, and the more money that they make. And that's the reason that they spew lies, falsehood in the air. Not because they know, not because they have any understanding of any of those things, but because you provide them with plenty of reason to continue to do that. Because if they lose you, you become smarter. You begin to understand that they're not providing you anything of substance, they're just lying to you. Then you move to someplace else. Then they begin to do one or two things. Either they get kicked out for continuing to lie because their audience will start dwindling, or they get in the program and start speaking the truth. So the key to putting an end to both your Republican legislators who continue to lie to you and those individuals is for you to stop accepting their lies. That's a very simple recipe. Stop accepting their lies and you see how fast they can turn around to now start providing education. Because an ignorant person is not useful to society at all. So we need to get this. You need to get to the point of understanding that those people, they don't care about you. You are a tool for the politician to keep their job. You are a tool for places like Fox to make money. That's all you are. As far as you becoming more knowledgeable, that's not their problem. You can stay as ignorant as far as they're concerned. The more ignorant you are, the better it is for them. In 1996, a small network by the name of Fox News was launched with just 17 million viewers. Today, with over 100 million people watching regularly, Fox has become the greatest threat to our democracy, constantly bombarding the airwaves with false information, distortion of facts, and outright lies presented to its audience as news. Fox has created an army of blissful ignorance. According to a survey, 82% of Fox viewers are ignorant of facts and the truth. To keep millions of people in ignorance not only prevents democracy from flourishing, but it also clears the path to authoritarianism, to dictatorship. Martin Luther King Jr. said, "Nothing in all the world is more dangerous than sincere ignorance and conscientious stupidity." Let me finish by saying that democracy cannot survive in an environment where truth and facts do not matter. At Fox, truth and facts do not matter. Indeed, democracy in America is in jeopardy. It is a crisis the country can no longer ignore. I hope you've enjoyed this program. If not, let us know. We'll do better next time. We apologize for the many technical issues we've experienced today, and we hope to resolve that for our next program. In the meantime, if you have questions, comments, criticism, please do not hesitate to contact us. Should you have a topic you would like us to discuss here in the fourth branch, please let us know. We will research the topic, we will debate it, and we will present it to you according to common sense. As mentioned last time, if you have video, images, or links about police brutality, wrongdoing, please forward us the link. Let us know about it. We'd like to know about that as we continue our discussion on race relations in America. I hope in the meantime you have a wonderful afternoon. Good day.
The Fourth Branch podcast is brought to you in collaboration with the People Branch publication, which can be found on the People Branch website located at peoplebranch.org. That's peoplebranch.org. That's peoplebranch.org website, in which you will find a number of very interesting articles. My name is Mike Duchesne, MD for short. I hope you have a great afternoon or a great evening, whichever it happens to be. Hopefully you can join me again next time for another interesting episode of this podcast. That was the Fourth Branch, live from New York. Good day.
What if hip-hop never existed? Do you think there'd be as many heads screaming out, stop snitching? What if Adam and Eve ain't eat the fruit? You think we'd be able to see the truth? Or what if Albert Einstein ain't think of the nuke? Or Smith & Wesson ain't teach us to shoot? You think there'd be as many players out there if there was no boost? Matter of fact, what if white man hung off a noose? Would it still be cool to say nigga? Or maybe we would make sick figures? Or would we wanna be crackers? And all the whites would be rappers? What if Martin Luther King survived? You think the New Orleans flood would've caused him to drop and die? I wonder what if and see what is. Stand back from the picture and ask yourself why. What if life wasn't all you thought? What if everything you knew was gone? What if we switched to rights and wrongs? You think you'd change your route to the road we on? What if life wasn't all you thought? What if everything you knew was gone? What if we switched to rights and wrongs? You think you'd change your route to the road we on? If Christopher Wallace never got murked, how much money would Sean Carter be worth? What if Tupac never got hit with the flame? Would the game still have change filled with these lames? What if Jabari wasn't speeding down the street? What if the bullet Malcolm sent never hit Zeke? A black guy dropped off at the house instead of the stop? Or Ali never got bopped by the cops? What if the little homie EZ didn't die? Stand back from the picture and ask yourself why. What if life wasn't all you thought? What if everything you knew was gone? What if we switched to rights and wrongs? You think you'd change your route to the road we on? What if life wasn't all you thought? What if everything you knew was gone? What if we switched to rights and wrongs? You think you'd change your route to the road we on?